Welcome to Bodhi Unified Flow. I'm Dr. Marmathu, your host, and here we simplify complexity and amplify performance. Let's get right into it. Today, we're exploring the absolute best practices for the design phase, specifically planning and pre-construction. We're going to unpack exactly how to set up flawless design management and organization. Look, if you've ever wondered how mega projects manage to prevent disastrous cost overruns before a single shovel even hits the dirt, well, it all comes down to the frameworks we're diving into today.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, leadership and the architect of record. Second, the design management plan. Third, the staged design process. Fourth, design review workshops. And finally, design quality management. Before we jump in, here are the core takeaways you'll get from this session. You're going to learn how to structurally mitigate design risks to prevent those absolute nightmare cost overruns. You'll see how to establish undeniable accountability using RACI matrices. We'll also master the execution of the staged design gate process and figure out how to integrate complex stakeholder feedback without completely derailing your project timeline. All right, I want you to think about this staggering number, 78%. Research shows that 78% of all changes that happen during construction are directly tied to the design phase. That's huge. The vast majority of your on-site headaches, they were actually born in the pre-construction phase. To put that in perspective, design changes alone account for an average 9.5% cost growth on a project. So we really can't treat design as just a creative exercise. It's an absolutely crucial exercise in profound financial risk management. So let's start with our first area, leadership and the architect of record, and establishing clear accountability. What's really fascinating here is the strategic split in roles. On one side, we have the design architect. They're the conceptual visionary, right? They're focusing on the client's aspirational goals, the spatial flow, those absolutely stunning 3D renderings we all love, but they might not actually have the local licensing for the project site. On the flip side, anchored firmly to reality is the architect of record, or the AOR. This is your technical anchor. The AOR takes on the full legal responsibility, the standard of care for the safety and compliance of the construction documents. They're locally licensed, they physically sign and seal the drawings for permitting, and they're basically the glue that integrates the structural and MEP engineers. Appointing a clear single AOR is literally your first line of defense.
Moving right along to Section 2, the design management plan, and exactly how we operationalize governance. Managing massive cross-functional teams demands a crystal clear language of authority, and that brings us to the RACI Matrix. Pay special attention to the accountable role here. There can only be one individual accountable for any given task, no exceptions. This creates a single source of truth and completely eliminates the kind of duplicated effort and muddy ownership that can just plague complex projects. The responsible folks are the ones actually doing the heavy lifting, the consulted experts provide vital input, and the informed group is just kept in the loop. Now, building on that RACI structure, we have to untangle the incredibly dense web of interdependencies between disciplines. Enter the Design Structure Matrix, or DSM. This is a brilliant interface management tool that helps design managers establish interdisciplinary control. Let's say you're building a multi-million-dollar hospital, and a massive structural beam is accidentally routed right through the main HVAC ducts. Instead of waiting for the guys on site to stumble upon that very expensive disaster, a systematic review using a DSM maps out inputs and outputs ahead of time, resolving real-world clashes long before a single pour of concrete. Next up, Section 3, the staged design process, which really acts as your gateways to success. Following established frameworks like the AIA, B101, or the RIBA plan of work, we have to enforce formal owner approvals at very specific stage gates. We move from concept to schematic design, making sure we have preliminary alignment with the site and scale. But let's pause at design development in the middle. This is a massive financial safeguard. Design development is where all these complex systems are integrated, acting as a strict, hard budget check. If the estimated cost is over budget at this point, the architect has to realign the design. Finally, we get to construction documents, which gives us the definitive technical record and the regulatory finality needed for bidding. The golden rule: never, ever let a team rush past a gate without formal, documented approval. On to Section 4, Design Review Workshops, where we focus heavily on facility management and user integration. Think about it. A technical design, no matter how beautifully drawn, is practically useless if it doesn't actually function for the people operating the building. That's why these workshops are totally non-negotiable. We've got to bring in the facility management teams and end users at the 10, 30, 60, and 95% milestones. And why is that? Because life cycle costs will almost always outweigh the initial construction costs. The FM teams are hunting for things the design team might completely overlook. Maintainability, for instance, can a technician actually reach the HVAC components to service them? Or life safety, are the fire control systems practically laid out? And infrastructure, is there enough campus telecommunications capacity? We bring in the end users too, just to make sure programmatic requirements like specific spatial adjacencies are fully baked in. Of course, to manage this absolute flood of feedback, project managers have to rely on one golden rule. Never, ever delete an item from your action log. Even if an idea is totally rejected or a problem is fully solved, you just mark it as closed. This builds a permanent, indisputable audit trail of exactly why certain decisions were made. It guarantees that no one can come back 6 months down the line and claim their input was ignored. Finally, Section 5, Design Quality Management, which is all about anchoring everything with ISO 9001 compliance. Implementing ISO 9001, it's an absolute game changer. It takes this abstract idea of quality and transforms it into repeatable, highly structured processes. Just look at how these specific clauses map directly to daily management. Clause 8.3.2, for example, mandates strict design control and verification. Clause 8.3.6 demands rigorous modification control before any changes are pushed through. This forces evidence-based decision-making. You're using real structural analysis data to back up your design choices, which naturally promotes risk-based thinking. Add in regular internal audits, and your team is continuously minimizing those costly errors and omissions. So let's wrap this all up. We've just walked through the master framework for mitigating pre-construction risks. You absolutely must appoint a clear lead designer or architect of record to establish unshakable legal accountability. Then, you operationalize that with a design management plan powered by RACI Matrices. You've got to enforce those formal stage gates, right from concept all the way through to construction documents. Make sure you integrate operational reality through your FM and end-user workshops. And finally, anchor the whole shebang with ISO 9001 compliance. Here are the specific references and international frameworks we cited today, which really represent the gold standard of the construction industry. As we finish up, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on for your own projects. If you look closely at your current pre-construction workflows, is your design phase systematically creating value and certainty, or is it just quietly compounding your future risk? Thanks so much for joining me today on Bodhi Unified Flow. Until next time, keep simplifying complexity.